Hi, my name's Ishmael and today we're going to be talking about rent controls. I know I've covered this subject before, but the reason I'm bringing it up today is because Samuel Leeds has started a petition and I want you to sign it. The reason I want you to sign it is because of the following reasons. So, why are rent controls bad? Well, Sadiq has decided that if he gets re-elected as mayor, which he has, he is going to bring in rent controls in London. Now, studies have shown in places like New York, Berlin, Scotland, that rent controls cause issues. What they do is you control one part of the capital or one part of the city's rent, and that causes a rippling effect because then landlords don't want to invest there because they can never increase their return on investment, so they stop investing there. So there's no rental properties for the tenants to move into. The landlords move out of the area and therefore the tenants move out of the area. Therefore, the housing crisis happens and only people who want to buy properties can move into the area. But there's a lot of people who can't afford to move into the area to buy, so they rent. And there's a lot of people who would prefer renting. So this causes a rippling effect across the nation. It starts in one part of the city, and if they move the rent controls and keep rotating the rent controls, it just causes landlords to pull out of different parts of the city until there's no landlords in the city. Now, why is that a bad thing? Not only for landlords, because it stops landlords being able to rent properties and have a market for their tenants, but it's bad for tenants because when there's no landlords, there's no properties for the tenants to rent. So there becomes a housing crisis. If you can't rent, where do you live? It's not a good thing. The other thing about controlling rents is that landlords will move out, and studies have shown that tenants are more happy with private landlords than with government agencies. So housing agencies like Cornwall County Council and so on, they do not actually have a good standard of property. I know someone who was living in a council house for 2 years and there was damp issues. They were ringing up on a regular basis, there was damp mould. They eventually had to find a private property to rent and move out because the council was not sorting out the problem, and they had a very small baby. As soon as they had their baby, they decided to move out. They moved in with friends until they found a temporary accommodation and then moved into a different private rented property. This is what happens. It has been done, studies have been done on private housing versus council housing, and the studies show that only 32% of people in council houses are happy with the standard of accommodation they are living in, whereas 68% of people are completely happy with the standard of property they're living in, as well as the landlords they're renting off when they go into the private rented sector. So what does this say? It says that private landlords, as far as tenants are concerned, not landlords, because obviously landlords are biased, but as far as tenants are concerned, private landlords are better than government agencies or public landlords or councils. So we need to keep the private landlord sector open. So what I'm proposing is sign the petition in the description below, stop the rent control capping, because this has caused problems in New York, it's caused problems in Berlin, it's caused problems in Scotland. They have all done this and they've all come to the conclusion that it had a negative impact on the city's rental market, it had a negative impact on housing, it had a positive impact or increase in homelessness, and these are things we don't want to see. So sign the petition, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and keep watching to keep up to date with various things going on in the property industry. And one more thing, so why does it matter about this petition if you don't live in London? Well, everywhere follows London. London's the capital, and as people may or may not know, what happens in London then spreads out to other cities. It generally goes to London, to Bristol, to Birmingham, and spreads out from those 3 cities throughout the whole of England, and sometimes Wales and Scotland follow, sometimes they're in front. But what happens in London spreads throughout England, and it's only a matter of time before, if it happens in London, they'll spread it. So don't let the housing crisis be affected in London, because that will affect you wherever you are in England. So sign the petition and keep up to date.